But I'm really not going to tell everything. So exciting as that. I'd like to share a story with you that's a little bit more sentimental for me. I was 38 years old when I was at the wake for my mother. Cajun country, we have a long wake. My brother and I actually stayed up all night long the night of the wake. But after the rosary and saying hello to people with all the condolences, I looked at the back of the room and I saw someone I didn't know, which was unusual because my mama knew everybody and she took me around and I knew everybody with her. I went up to the gentleman and I asked if he was a friend of my brother's. I had older brothers, and he said, "Yes, Cheryl, I am friends with your older brothers." And I looked at him and he said, "And I know who you are. But I'm not here for your brothers. I'm here because your mama and I were good friends." And I looked at him and I thought, "Oh, Daddy was 10 years younger, but this man has got to be like 20 years younger." And how did this walk? He looked at me and said, "I know what you're thinking." No, we were gardening friends. Every day I drive to work on Highway 101, and I would see your mama's garden, and I tell myself, one of these days when I see her out in the yard, I'm going to stop and tell her how much I love her garden. And so one day I did. Saw her, I pulled in her horseshoe driveway, and I stood up out of the car and I said, "Miss Florence, I just wanted to tell you how much I love your garden. I drive by every day. It's so beautiful." "Oh," she said, "get down. Come on. I'll take you for a garden walk." And she did. We walked off through the garden, and I left that day with seeds, bulbs, seedlings, and a new friend. We shared our gardens together. She would come see mine, bring me plants. I would go visit with her and bring her plants. And she told me one day, she said, "You know, gardening is not just for the flowers. It's for the hours. The hours you spend in the greenery feeling. Sometimes you're crying because you're sad about losing someone. It's not just about the flowers. It's about the hours you spent. I never forgot that. I'll never forget your mom. He gave me a gift that day from beyond the garden gate. I went home 1,000 miles away to Naples, Florida, and I'm sitting in my new garden, my new home with its landscaped rock garden. I'm sitting on a big stone and thinking of Mama. When my daughter flits over to me, she's pretending to be a butterfly and she's chasing them. And she said, "What you doing, Mom?" And I said, "Oh, honey, I'm thinking about grandmother." She said, "This is the perfect place to think about her. She loved her garden, didn't she, Mama?" She flitted off. Yes, she did. And then I remember what Mama said to me. I told her the last time I visited with her in her garden that I wish I could garden like her. And she said, "Oh, honey, it's not your time. No, you gotta wait for that. You got children right now. Those your children, they need you. They need the same energy you would give to the garden. You can't give it now. One day, they're gonna grow, and you can have your garden." I was sitting on that rock and I said, "Is it my time now, Mama? Is it my time to have a garden?" I got a bucket and I started removing some of those rocks. I went down, I bought some soil and put it in there. But oh, I had sandy soil. This was Naples, Florida, lots of sand. How can I change this soil? I had truckloads of mulch delivered. My neighbors loved me. No, they didn't. It smelled. But I started making beds, changing that sand, that Florida sand, to fertile soil. My daughters wanted to take horseback riding lessons. I found out that I could pay to have this horse boarded, and I paid for the month, and my daughters could ride as much as they wanted to and get a couple of lessons during the month. I would bring my daughters to ride horses, and I got these rubber crates and a shovel, and I started filling these crates up. I could get 2 of them into the back of my car with horse manure. I brought it home, I got a barrel, and put it in this barrel with water, and I made horse manure tea, fertilizer my garden. Again, my neighbors weren't too happy with me. It wasn't a gated community, but it was, it was neighborless. And so I continued to grow my garden. And one day my neighbor, he jogged. He was jogging by, and he said, Cheryl, how far are you going to go with this thing? I said, I don't know, Tom. I don't crochet. He said, crochet? What does that have to do with gardening? I said, well, my mama had one girl, 5 boys, and she said when I was a teenager, if she hadn't gardened and crocheted, she wouldn't have made it. And since I don't crochet, I garden more. Now, there was something missing out of my garden. The next trip I took back to Louisiana, I met up with my Aunt Thelma. She was my dad's sister, but she was my mom's best friend. And I told Aunt Thelma that I was gardening, but the only thing I was wrong was that I didn't have anything, no plants out of Mama's garden. Shall we gonna fix that up right now? Come with me. So we went outside, and she got a shovel. She took it to the side of the house, and there was a row of bushes. They had teeny tiny little bouquets, white bouquets, and they were called. She said, these are bridal wreaths. Your mama brought them over from her garden. And look at that. And they multiply too. You're going to take some home with you. So she took 2 on the end. She dug them up, wrapped them in wet newspaper, put them in bags, and put them in my car for the 1,000-mile drive back to Naples. So when I got home, I planted them on the side of my house. I was so proud of my bridal wreaths. Then we decided to put in a pool. And guess where it was going to go? Right where I put those bridal wreaths. Only place it could be. So I dug them up and moved them out of the way so I could replant them later. One day I came home from work and there's a great big pile of dirt on the side of where the pool was going to go, on top of Mama's bridal wreaths. I just cried. It was like I couldn't believe I was going to lose that little piece of her that I gained. So not long after that, when the pool's done, the contractor sent out the landscape. And he said, I can do anything you want. So I'm thinking you might want to burn in the front because, to block, give you some privacy. And I said, that sounds great. He said, anything else? I said, no. The only thing I wanted is the bottom of that heap of dirt. I told him the story. He said, okay, so what have you done before you get home from work today? And I went to the teach school, and I got back home and drove up. And there, sitting front and center on the top of the new berm, were my mom's bridal wreaths that he dug up and replanted. Won my heart. I continued to garden and all, but a few years later, empty nest, those girls grew up, moved away, and we decided to sell our home and buy a business. But something happened before that. You won't believe it. Selling your home in Naples is, you can make a good profit. But there was a gentleman that came by one day with a clipboard. It looked very official. And I was out in the garden, and I went up to his car, and I said, may I help you? And he says, I don't know, ma'am, do you own this property? And I said, yes, I do. He said, are you the one who's been gardening over there? And see, between my property and the next house was an easement. And to me, it was just begging to be gardened. Nobody, didn't belong to anybody. It was Netherland, and so I got in there and made paths and started gardening. I had a hand in there until somebody stole it. And I gardened the whole thing. And I looked at him and I said, he said, are you the one? I said, yes, sir, it's me, I'm guilty. Do I owe him a fine or something? He said, no. He said, if you just sign this line that you're the owner of this property, they're going to deed it over to you. And I said, deed? You mean like gifted? He said, yes, well, it will become part of your tax base. I said, that's okay. More waterfront edge in Naples on my property? Yes, sir. Another gift from beyond the garden gate. My mama was thought it was very important, to own land. So we packed up and sold that property and moved to DeLand. But before we left, I dug up those 2 bridal wreaths and I took them with me. I got busy running a new business, a new home, kindergarten. She had 2 teenage daughters. I introduced her to gardening, healing from soil to soul.